all in all, the intention of Unruly Babe is to reach those who have always been different, and one story, one interview at a time, remind ourselves that embracing what makes us different, even the difficult parts of ourselves, is key to embracing our personal power. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first pilot episode of Unruly Babe. I wanted to say that with so much hype, but that's the best that I can give. But yeah, not to mention how excited I am to just be saying that live and direct. I will introduce myself. My name is Maya. I was born at 6:56 p.m. on the 16th of February 1996 in Copenhagen, Denmark. I was there till about age 7.5, and then my parents moved to the UK, specifically in Birmingham, West Midlands. Then I went to school there, sixth form there, and then I moved to London when I was 18 to do my undergraduate degree, and I did my degree in international relations, which is basically just politics, but global politics. And I did that at SOAS University, which is a part of University of London. But SOAS, for those of you guys who don't know SOAS stands for School of Oriental and African Studies. So it's a very niche university, and it kind of sort of specializes in, as the name suggests, languages, social sciences, humanities, history of art, and it's a hotbed and a hot spot for social consciousness, social justice movements, things like that. And I graduated from there in the summer of 2017, and then after that I pursued a master's degree in psychology. But yeah, I thought I wanted to be a psychologist, but I dropped out 3 years into the course. But I was still lucky enough to be awarded a qualification of a postgraduate certificate in psychological studies. And yeah, I've lived in London for the last 9 years now, which is crazy. But yeah, London's been my home for almost a decade, and I mean, anyone who knows London's just special, it's really special. It holds, even if it's not going to be my home forever, it definitely holds a very special place in my heart. I'm also a writer. I'm a poet, creative. I discovered my talent for poetry in 2017 following a intense mental health crisis, as I was in the midst. I'm just going to give a trigger warning, so if anyone gets triggered by the mention of someone attempting suicide, then I'm just want to give you the trigger ahead of time. Maybe I should have given the trigger warning at the beginning of the episode. But yeah, trigger warning. I'll just insert that right now. Apologies if this doesn't act as an efficient trigger warning, because I'm right at the tip of saying it. But yeah, I was at a mental health crisis as I was contemplating suicide, and that's when I heard a voice telling me to write down what I was feeling. The words came to me in a poetic form, a form that I had never ever written in before. And yeah, since then I've written thousands and thousands of poems. It's been a long journey trying to figure out when is the right time for me to publish. Should I publish? What's my relationship with this very sacred art form of poetry? Is it something that I'm just going to keep for myself so I can, for my own sort of self-healing tool? Because that's, I mean, its origins, as I've shared, and the relationship I have with it is very personal and sacred, and it's very close to my heart. Is it something that's supposed to be just for me and my healing? Or is it something that will take a life form of its own to be shared with the world, and for that healing potential to be activated in other people's lives outside of myself. So that's something that I'm contemplating about, and I am leaning towards publishing my first collection at some point, but I'm just waiting for divine timing to play itself out. A bit of an anecdote of how I even knew what the word unruly was. I didn't even know the word unruly existed until my therapist, for some odd reason, I was fixated on her cleavage. I don't know, I think her cleavage looked really good on her that day. I don't know, sometimes people wear like a top or something and you're just like, it just complements their, what do they call it, the neck and like the collarbone and like to like the top half of your chest, that they call it the delicage or something, right? I just thought I was just mesmerized. I was looking at it, I was like, oh, she looks gorgeous. And I'm the type of person, I mean, I'm in therapy, so all my thoughts are welcome, right? And sometimes I just say whatever's on my mind, even if it's got nothing to do with what I'm there to talk about. So I was like, I can't stop looking at your chest area. I just can't stop looking at your boobs. I mean, she's cool. Like she's always curious about what's happening in my mind anyways. So it's not like she was just like, oh, I mean, tell me more about that. I went into like fear and anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, I hope like you're not offended. I don't want to be like inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. And then she reassured me and everything. And she's like, of course, like there's nothing wrong with like, human psychology is so complex. There's so many reasons why we might look at someone's chest other than it being sexual. And even if it is, I mean, it's not a crime and I'm certainly not offended. And then she just joked and says, oh, these things, like referring to her boobs, like, oh, they're such unruly things, aren't they? And then I was like, and then I just asked her, what does unruly mean? And that word just stuck to me. I just love that word. Unruly was a very powerful word for me to encounter, thanks to my therapist and her beautiful delicage area. So yeah, she was my muse, unintentionally my muse in that moment. She's been a muse to me so many times that she's aware of, and sometimes she's not, but she's just amazing. If we're looking at the word unruly, so the definition of unruly is essentially something or someone disorderly. Something or someone that cannot be controlled or disciplined. And this is kind of how I felt my whole life. The only relationship and access to difference and my own divergence and creative spirit was via the negative projections of individuals, society, systems and institutions who were and still are deeply committed to misunderstanding people like myself. I'd say the root of most of my core wounds and facets of complex PTSD and trauma is being denied who I wanted to be and being the subject of some kind of abuse anytime that I didn't conform. That I didn't conform, or that I, in contrast, wanted to have or establish an identity that differed from that which was imposed on me from birth. And then obviously I began therapy and this thing called a healing journey, which I'm still figuring out very much now. And I realized that trying anything or anyone other than who I am would make me sick. I would actually become physically sick, would be a participant in my own demise, physically, psychologically, in every possible way, if I didn't embrace who I was. Although we always hear cliches about being yourself, which it just makes me angry when people just throw around things like that irresponsibly. I always heard words like that and I felt a lot of shame. Even before therapy, I was an extremely self-aware person, and I always knew sometimes when I was like shrinking myself or like doing things that were people pleasing, and they were all things to survive, So that's why I had to foster compassion. A big part of my healing journey, and I think a big part of any healing journey, is the fostering of self-compassion for yourself. And I had to, after doing that, and it's something that I still struggle with, but I'm in the practice of fostering self-compassion as much as I can, I had to think critically and ask myself, if it was that easy to be yourself, Wouldn't everyone be doing it? I mean, I think it's deeply reductive. I think it's deeply violent to overlook the mechanisms in society and systems that program people, both psychologically and that program people psychologically to engage in groupthink and self-abandon their authentic truth, or sort of embarking on a journey to finding it. Social systems that run through every fabric of society, including and especially our interpersonal relationships and our intimate relationships, are wired in order for us to perform authenticity. Not many are actually curious about the organic and tumultuous and often chaotic facets that's involved in real, deep psychological transformation. So when someone embraces this journey on a real level, they become the shadow and the problem. In other words, unruly. So as I came to my healing journey and I began to become curious about my own differences and divergence, I had to make some kind of peace with the fact that choosing this path of embracing what makes me different, I had to sacrifice the comfort of being understood by others. And I had to accept on some level that I was going to be misunderstood. And my job wasn't to convince other people that I'm a good person, that I mean well, or to even respond to the negative projections. Easier said than done. Just want to put that out there. Easier said than done. It's a lifelong practice, right? And there's all sorts of reasons why those of us who grew up with a lot of trauma feel like we have to explain and over-explain ourselves to be understood, because we're still working out that original wound of wanting to be understood by our primary influences but being rejected for who we were, and trying to reconcile that by reenacting that core wound. So it's a constant journey. I really want to put that out there. And it's a reminder to self as well. On the healing journey, you do get to a point where you have to take the healing of this wound in your own hands and not sort of project, or try your best not to project, the fear of being misunderstood on others, especially those who are actually committed to misunderstanding you, because you represent the shadow and everything that they're trying to suppress in themselves. And for sometimes just your breath, sometimes like you can just breathe and someone's triggered. So the job isn't to control that, but to tend to the parts of you that is seeking that understanding and give them that attention, right? And be affirmed by the right people. I had to come to a place of making peace with the fact that if I'm going to go on this journey of embracing my difference, embracing who I am, embracing my divergence, embracing quote unquote my unruliness, then I would have to sacrifice, certain comforts. I might even lose social currency, and I'm most definitely going to be misunderstood. And it might even take me longer to achieve things because I'm taking the road less traveled, but that it's all going to be worth it, right? My thoughts were that in the end, I will have preserved and gained the most important thing, which is myself. All in all, the intention of Unruly Babe is to reach those who have always been different, and one story, one interview at a time, remind ourselves that embracing what makes us different, even the difficult parts of ourselves, is key to embracing our personal power. I'm a poet, so that means I write poetry about literally, I don't know, I'm putting on an accent. I literally write poetry about every single thing, and this podcast is no exception. So I want to share with you guys a poem to commemorate and to symbolize this very special moment of opening and birthing and bringing out into the world this beautiful creation. I'm going to share with you this poem, and it really speaks to the heart of what this podcast symbolizes. Here goes. I know you're surprised to know that this unruly babe survived. She's walking her path far into a future you will never be a part of. It's not even karma. We can't change the way the light shines through us. I became a criminal the day my eyes had a strange look. I could see things I wasn't supposed to see and hear the voices of people who thought they were whispering. I didn't judge them. We all have a reason for choosing to dance in the darkness. I just asked to be left with the stars at night and wake up with the sun delighted to celebrate my innocence. I was told that you're dreaming. The salt water you drink every night to sleep is a blessing. You have earned your place in heaven. Now that we have battered you and gifted you with bruises, we fought so hard to choose so it would leave a lasting impression on you. Be happy you have something to show God in the afterlife. But the salt water turned into poison, and soon I became so sick that my brokenness turned into a sword I used to point at anyone who would listen. How dare you bite the hand that feeds you? Do you know you're alive because of me? If the life that holds me on the days I treasure and those I mark with blood and tears really come from you, then I will end it myself and meet this God of yours and ask him to make me again. I turned into nothingness and met myself. You thought I would perish without you, but I am here to tell you that this unruly babe survived a beautiful death. So yeah, guys, that is the poem that I felt inspired to write and to share for this particular moment in time and for this pilot episode of the Unruly Babe podcast. I am your beloved host, Maya, and I wish you a very, very, very blessed rest of your day, blessed rest of your week, month, year. And I am so very excited for you to be joining me on this journey. Hopefully we'll be journeying with each other for the rest of this endeavor. All the best. Love you so very much. And whoever's listening to this today, or who's listening to the playback, or whenever you come back to it, I just want to leave you off with you are loved and your presence and light and life matters in this world. I'll say that again. You are loved, your light, your life and your presence matters in this world.